Alright everybody, Sony just had their 2016 PlayStation meeting for PS4 Slim and PS4 Neo, and like always, we are going to do our recap and impressions of the event. So to kick off the 2016 PlayStation meeting, Andrew House takes the stage, right away announces PS4 Slim September 15th for $299.99. Very good price actually. Then, does a little bit of PR talk about the industry, moving forward, blah blah blah, screen sizes, what we have to go towards. Basically gets to what we all knew. PS4 Neo, which is actually officially called PlayStation 4 Pro. It is officially announced. So Mark Cerny ends up taking the stage to discuss a few things about PS4 Pro, upgraded GPU, boosted clock rate, 1TB HDD standard on the PS4 Pro, HDR support, of course, moving into a big gameplay reel of PS4 Pro games, talking about HDR, which of course is high dynamic range, very important for picture quality nowadays, very big standard thing on 4K displays nowadays, HDR, showcases a couple of games taking advantage of HDR, Days Gone, Infamous First Light, Uncharted 4, which brings us to our next point, which is them discussing how old games can receive patches for PS4 Pro compatibility. I almost wanted to say Neo. We're so used to saying PS4 Neo. PS4 Pro, this thing we've kind of been preaching for a while now, forward compatibility, so old games can't get patched, and a vast majority of Sony's first-party games are going to be receiving patches for PS4 Pro. They show off some new footage for Horizon Zero Dawn. That game's looking better and better every time we see it. And then they discuss a little bit about PS4 and how it's one community. This is, it's going to use the same PlayStation Store and everything, kind of what we've been talking about. Kind of the same stuff we already know. We knew a lot of this stuff already. Moving on to Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, I almost forgot that Sony has a partnership now with Activision and whatnot, so yeah, they were definitely here showing off Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. Supports PS4 Pro at launch. That's kind of a given. That's something that Sony's going to be mandating moving forward for PS4 Pro games, or for any PS4 game, it's going to need PS4 Pro support. So that's kind of an irrelevant point. They just wanted to be there because they had to be there. They also actually announced Black Ops 3 receiving a patch, and they showed off some footage of Infinite Warfare. Aaron Flynn from EA takes the stage to show off some Mass Effect Andromeda gameplay. Once again, PS4 Pro gameplay. It's, whatever. We know that game looks great, but they just show it for PS4 Pro. Then we move on to PS4 Pro 4K streaming. Netflix is getting an app. It's going to have over 600 hours of 4K content for you to watch on launch, and then 4K. YouTube's going to be doing 4K as well, a 4K YouTube app that will also be available on launch. Apparently, don't harass me if I get a few details wrong here. The conference literally just ended about 5 minutes ago. All PS4s will actually support HDR via a firmware update that'll be coming up next week. So every single PS4, no matter which model you have, will get HDR support. And then a nice little gameplay showcase, how Sony likes to just show off random trailers of gameplay footage and everything, kind of reminding you that PS4 has video games to play. And then we move on to the ending of the show, which is PS4 Pro's price, $400, 400 euros, 349 British pounds sterling. It is actually, just like last week on LTPS, it is that rumored design we were talking about, that Foxconn employee that sketched what PS4 Pro is going to look like. That is exactly what it looks like. And that NeoGAF rendering. It is a 3-tiered design. Actually does have an LED strip, I believe, on the very bottom tiered portion of it. And it'll be available November 10th. And that is everything that was announced on stage, keep in mind. So if there's any other announcements after the fact, we didn't cover them because the conference just ended. So we're just doing that right now. And of course we got LTPS on Friday, so that's when we'll cover up any details that we missed. But I'm getting this video done quickly because I have dinner plans after, which I already told you guys about because this is my anniversary for my girlfriend, with me and my girlfriend. So the conference itself, the actual impressions now that we're, done with the recap. So it was a problematic show for a number of reasons. The number one being, I kind of saw this coming, but you can't really showcase something like 4K and high dynamic range live streamed. You know what I mean? That's the most important. This is all about picture quality at the end of the day. Of course, there's a few minute details that developers can do with the extra horsepower of PS4 Pro, which is that you can increase graphical detail, increase texture detail and stuff, which they kind of showcased a little bit with the they showed off Spider-Man PS4. They kind of did a zoom in on Spider-Man's face, and they kind of showed you some increased texture detail there. But for the most part, this is all about picture quality, and you can't really do that during a live stream and during a conference, even when you're there actually in the conference center and you're watching it right there in person. It's a giant screen. It's just it's a weird environment. This is all about 4K televisions in your home. and being able to see the picture quality right there in your face. So it's kind of hard to demonstrate. Another thing being they kind of missed a lot of the fronts that I have always been talking about on this YouTube channel, which is like the benefit to PS4 Neo or to PS4 Pro, and like even the benefit to Scorpio, which is that I feel like this is the right step to go forward in the industry, and they didn't really cover that. The name in particular I actually like. I think it actually works very well, PS4 Pro. It doesn't over confuse consumers or anything. It seems pretty obvious, clear cut in your face. Here's a standard PS4, here's PS4 Pro. This is the beefed up one. There's no problems there. The design, of course, which we talked about just last week, hit the nail on the head there. Basically, it has to, it would follow the same design language, but it would definitely look different, and it would probably be a little bit of a beefier system, and it looks beefier too. This thing looks thicker than the current PS4 design, not the PS4 Slim. It looks even thicker then, so which we'll get into once we actually get PS4 Slim and PS4 Pro in our hands, and we'll do comparison videos and all that for the size and thickness, and of course how well they run in terms of noise level and heat and everything. We'll get into all those details once we actually have the systems in our hands. The price point is great too. For $100, this thing is not some extra premium system over the original PlayStation 4 back in 2013, and this kind of goes into what I've always talked about, which is that these mid-cycle consoles make a lot of sense. You don't in any way, shape, or form end up releasing a system that is grossly overpriced or anything. You just meet back after like a bunch of price cuts from like one hardware, then you just meet back to that initial price point, and now it's just a more powerful system, and then you just keep doing that over and over and over again, depending on however the upgrade cycle is for what the hardware manufacturer wants to do, because that's the whole point of PS4 Pro. And I think a lot of people still aren't seeing this. It's the long-term benefit of it. People keep looking at it in the short term. What's the point of PS4 Pro? This devalues current owners, this and that. This doesn't make any sense. How do people not understand this? It's the long-term vision. Forward compatibility. That means PS, whatever is after Pro, it's still going to use the x86, right? It's still going to be slightly more powerful. You will never have to worry about compatibility ever again. Old PlayStation games will work. They might even get patched to support the extra horsepower that your new PlayStation has. Let's say, I don't know, let's say that they do, let's say the next PlayStation after PS4 Pro, they just name it straight up PS5. This is, of course, all conjecture, but I would assume they would use x86, make it slightly more powerful, and guess what? There's never this issue of backwards compatibility ever again. The PlayStation Store is exactly the same. Sure, you might use like a different operating system or something to make it look a little bit different, a little bit fancy, and actually differentiate it and making it seem like it is a PlayStation 5 and not 4. But, make those differences where this is a much grander jump, but you're still using the same architecture. So PS4 games are completely fine now. Everything you bought in the PlayStation Store, you can download. You can still use PlayStation Now. Assuming Vita is still relevant, maybe you still got that remote play functionality baked in. It's all about the long term, and that's obviously what Microsoft's going to be doing as well, and that's the message they were sending at E3 when they were discussing Scorpio and saying, this is all in one big community, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to buy it, but it's extra power, and what we always talk about. The problem with this show is that they did not convey any of that messaging whatsoever. All they did was show us games that we already know exist. They showed us footage of these games on PS4 Pro, and we can't necessarily in any way, shape, or form really appreciate those differences, because that's the thing, you're not going to appreciate a PS4 Pro until it's in your home and you have a 4K television. Even then, even if you have a regular TV, it's just, they try to say like, oh, it's going to look a little bit better on 1080p as well. It's just, you're not going to appreciate it until you got the whole package there. And that's the problem, is that a lot of people don't have the whole package, and they probably won't for a while, which is why, PS4 Pro, I'm not entirely sure how well this thing's going to do, but at $400, it's certainly not a bad deal. This is the original PS4 we paid for in 2013. Now it's just a slightly more beefed up system that you don't have to buy, and that's something that I feel like Sony should have spent more time talking about. You don't have to do this, They really should have been a little bit more consumer pro at this event. I mean, obviously they do want to try and tell people why PS4 Pro is so great, but this is the first time that anybody has tried to do something like this in the console industry. You have to spend some time explaining what this means for the long term, what this means for Sony's vision, say 10 years from now, because this is the first time we're actually doing this, and they're not saying anything like that, which also kind of scares me to think maybe they aren't doing something like that. Maybe PlayStation 5 is going to be a completely new architecture, and they're going to start over from scratch once again, which would make PS4 Pro totally irrelevant. this is just at least how I've always interpreted it. This is what I've always been talking about for the longest time on this YouTube channel. This is why I think PS4 Pro makes absolute sense. This is why I think Scorpio makes absolute sense, and this is why I think this is what the console industry needs to do. This is what we have to do to stay relevant, to have great looking games, to keep up with the way that technology evolves. This is what works. It's worked for phones, it works for PCs on a need to upgrade basis. It works for them, it can work for consoles, but this is the first time, and Sony and Microsoft need to actually explain this to people and what it's going to mean for the next 5 to 10 years. I mean, in terms of anything else that was at the conference, PS4 Slim, $300, great price. I think it makes, it looks good from a consumer perspective, especially when PS4 Pro is the kind of thing that, again, you're not going to really totally enjoy unless you have, a nice television and everything. And since a lot of people still don't have that, at $300, you really can't go wrong with a PS4 Slim. Going to use less power, going to sound more quiet. I think that's actually a great deal. PS4 Neo PS4 Pro, starting at a terabyte of space. I'm glad that's a standard now. The gameplay reels, it's like, what are we going to do with those? They look, Days Gone looks great. I'm sure Uncharted 4 is going to look fucking amazing on PS4 Pro. Horizon Zero Dawn is looking better and better every time we see it. The only thing that worries me about Horizon Zero Dawn, I think the gameplay looks top-notch. I think that's not the worry about that game. I think the worry is that it ends up being too shallow, like there's the story ends too quickly, or there's not enough side quests or something, or there's just not enough variety in how you approach certain gameplay tactics. I think actually moving around, how you interact with the robot dinosaurs and everything looks great. I'm worried that the game is just a little bit too shallow. And I think that might be the game's biggest downfall if it ends up coming out and having a major problem. Call of Duty gets a ton of shit. I mean, at this point, if I was Sony, granted you have the partnership now and you have to bring them to events and stuff, but I would have not brought them here at all. And the guy ended up the guy that took the stage. I forgot his name. I'm sorry, but his mic wasn't working at first, and it's just the Twitch chat's going nuts, making fun of him. It's just oh god, this guy didn't stand a chance. EA has always been actually a big proponent of PS4 Pro, so it's really no big surprise that they were here to show off some stuff. It's good that they kind of mentioned real quick, if you do have a 4K set and you get PS4 Pro, we are gonna absolutely give you some stuff to watch on it with Netflix and YouTube and everything. Especially YouTube. YouTube is pretty much the #1 provider of 4K as far as I'm aware, because that's such a big hub of videos and stuff. It's obviously people are definitely uploading in 4K nowadays. But overall, the conference was not great. It was bad, and it was bad for all the things that we just talked about. I still feel this is the right direction. This is definitely where consoles need to go. This is where they need to evolve into. And it seems like a lot of people don't have the same sentiments as I do, and understandably so. We're allowed to have opposing opinions. I see people I see the kind of funny crew like Colin Moriarty, Greg Miller, and I know there's a lot of people that watch me and those guys as well, and they're of the complete separate opinion. PS4 Pro makes no sense, blah blah blah, and why are they doing this? It doesn't make any sense. Just do PS5 or something. It kind of means what is Sony going to do in the long term? I think the whole point of long term is to make this thing fully compatible moving forward and giving people the latest and greatest without having to upgrade. I think that's the entire point. But if Sony's going to do PS5 and make it completely different, then yeah, PS4 Pro makes no sense. But if they're going to do what I think they're going to do, then it does make sense. They don't feel the same way. A lot of people don't feel the same way. Honestly, I'm shocked that the Kind of Funny crew doesn't see it the same way I do. But I do think this is still where we need to go. It'll be interesting to see what Microsoft does. We know that Microsoft is going to be having a actually vastly more powerful system as far as the specs are concerned. But I want to see how they're going to handle it in terms of PR once they explain more about it and show what their box looks like and everything. And of course, what Sony's going to be doing in terms of interviews and giving out more details and stuff after this video is actually done and uploaded. And hopefully we'll talk about some more things on Friday when they do announce some more things. And that's another thing, it seems like such a big deal, especially because they held a big conference and everything for it, which they kind of had to do, and they kind of really messed it up by not explaining what needed to be explained, because now that you've made it such a big deal with this conference, people are looking at this as such a dramatic change, and it is a dramatic change for the industry, but at the same time, it's not so dramatic because you don't have to buy PS4 Pro, and you don't have to buy Scorpio when it comes out. You can skip this mid-cycle update and do the next one, and it remains to be seen what the next one will look like, and I think the next one after PS4 Pro and Scorpio is really going to be telling of what is going to happen in the next 10 to 20 years. Once that one comes, then we'll really know what the idea was. And if it's, you know, my idea and what seems to make sense, I would think that'd be a great thing. If it is something entirely different, then it's, well, we're going to have a not so great gaming future, I think. But we'll see when we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Anyway, that was the 2016 PlayStation meeting conference for PS4 Slim, PS4 Neo. Thank you all for watching, and like I just said, we will talk again on Friday to cover up any details that we might have missed, and by all means, let's discuss how you guys all feel about this. I'm okay with it. November 10th, we'll get a PS4 Pro. I'll do all the videos for it as well as PS4 Slim, mind you, which is coming September 15th again. That's actually not too far away, obviously, because people actually already have the damn thing, so we'll do videos on that. We'll do some PS4 Pro videos. We'll have a good time this holiday season, and PlayStation VR as well, so we got a lot of stuff to do coming up. Hope you guys either have some cash or a lot of time to play all these games. Okay, that does it for me, and I'll see you guys on Friday.